Hey cellists, in a previous video I talked about how to do clean shifting on the cello. That's shifts where you don't hear any slide. Now if you haven't seen that video, you might want to check it out. It's got some information that is relative to what I'm going to talk about today, and I'll leave a link in the comments. Today I'm going to talk about the kind of shifts where you want to hear a slide for expressive purposes. Sometimes we call these expressive shifts or vocal connections. We can go upward or downward. I think the most famous downward shift for cellos, the famous first movement of Elgar Concerto. We can also do small shifts, either up or down, one note or something like that. But what I want to focus on today are the kind of big upward shifts that tend to make us feel kind of anxious. First, I'm going to talk about the two basic kinds of upward shifts with a slide. I'm going to give you some help and some exercises on how to make those better, including an exercise that I came up with for myself that I find very helpful for my own shifts to make them more accurate and more beautiful, and it's helpful for my students. Even if you're an advanced cellist or a professional, this is an exercise you may not have seen before, and you might find it helpful. If you don't watch anything else in this video, I'd suggest skip to that part, and I'll leave a timestamp here. After that, I'm going to just give a little bit of an overview about when to slide, when not to slide, when to use which kind of slide. There are two basic ways of doing an upward slide. I describe these as a helicopter landing and an airplane landing. And for an example, I'm going to use Dvorak's Humoresque. It comes up in book 3 of the Suzuki Cello School. And it's got one of the first big shifts in it where we can put in a slide, and also one that can make us a little bit anxious. So the first way we'll talk about to get to that note is with a helicopter landing. And what that means is you're going to slide up on the departure finger. In this case, it's going to be your first finger. And by the way, for this, what I call a helicopter landing, it's always going to go from a lower finger to a higher finger. It's the only way that this kind of shift works. So I'm going to slide up on the departure finger. And if there's a bow change for this kind of shift, all of the slide will happen before the bow changes. So I'm sliding up, and then right when the bow changes, I drop the arrival finger straight down onto the string like a helicopter landing straight down. So I'm going up, drop the third finger, down like this. One way to practice this kind of shift so you can get it more accurate is make sure you know where the a departure finger has to land. In this case, it's an A. So if you can practice hitting that, then the third finger, it's easier to make sure the third finger goes straight down onto its note. Now, as with all shifting, you want to make sure that you get the shifting momentum going before the shift happens. If you wait till the moment the shift has to happen to go for it, you're going to be very tense and not as likely to make a beautiful shift. In this kind of shift, what I call the helicopter landing, all of the slide happens at the beginning of the shift. So, and if you wonder about hearing that intermediate note, that A popping out, you're not going to really hear it because we're going to release the weight of the shift on our departure finger before we get to that in real life. Doing this is only just an exercise. In fact, we can control the amount of slide we want to hear by how long we keep the departure finger on the string. So if you wanted a lot of slide, we could keep the finger down longer, a little too much for my taste, or we can make it more subtle by letting the weight up sooner, like that. So that's the helicopter landing. The other way of getting to a note like this is what I call an airplane landing. Now for this one, we are going to slide on the arrival finger. So in this case, I'm starting on the first finger, but the third finger is going to go down, and all the slide happens on that third finger. And in this case, all of the slide happens after the bow changes. So unlike the helicopter landing, sliding after the bow changes. So I'm starting here, sliding up like this. Here's an exercise that I'd like to do, I mentioned earlier, to help make this more beautiful and more accurate. And it goes like this. You're going to take your whichever arrival finger, in this case third finger, and you're going to just start about a half step below your arrival note. In this case, we're going to be on a B because we're going to a C. And you're going to practice just pushing your finger up to the note you want to arrive at, pretty much just by sliding out that finger. Makes some kind of a little meowing sound. The next thing you do is practice hitting your shift about a half step too low. So try to hit a B. And then I'm going to slide that last half step of the shift just using my arrival finger. So why would you want to do this? Well, there are really three good benefits of this exercise. Now, the first one I find by just doing this little slide, it really helps teach that finger where the spot is that it needs to go to. And I think that's the original reason I came up with this exercise, because I really wanted my finger to get the feeling of where it needed to land it. But the second benefit is it gives you a lot of control over the style of the shift and a little nuance of the shift, because you can make the slide slow down a little bit right at the top, which can be nice. You wouldn't want to do it every time, but in certain cases, that can be a really nice kind of shift. And then the third benefit is it can help you feel more confident and accurate with your shift, because as long as you don't overshoot the shift, you can still fix it. Let's say you undershoot it. You can just push it up that last little bit, and your audience probably won't realize that you made what you feel is a mistake. In fact, they may recognize it or note it as an especially beautiful kind of shift. So I would recommend practicing with that kind of little exercise will really help you with that. Now, two other little exercises or little tips that can help you with all of your big shifts, make them more accurate. If you're having trouble, especially after a lot of practicing, still missing, don't forget to make the note before the shift beautiful. So vibrate. That will help you make the next note, or at least take your mind off worrying about that upper note. And then the second thing is, don't forget to really hear the arrival note in your head. I think after we've been practicing a while, we forget to hear where we're going. And this is an especially hard one because it's a seventh, so it's a little hard to hear. So while I'm playing this note, da, da, if I can hear that C in my ear before I go, and just let my finger go, I'm much more likely to just go. If I've been practicing a lot, the finger is more likely to hit it. And in a performance, if you can train yourself to do these two things, you're more likely to counteract some of the anxiety you might feel and make a more beautiful shift. To finish up, I want to talk just a little bit about when to slide, when not to slide, what kind of slides to use. I remember when I was maybe a teenager and practicing, and noticed that if I didn't try to cover up a certain shift, so I don't know what it was at that time, but it sounded kind of pretty. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if professionals do this kind of thing on purpose, or if they plan that kind of thing. And now I can tell you, yes, we plan it a lot. So when we're practicing a piece of music that we're going to play, professionals will give a lot of thought to when they slide, when they don't slide, which kind of slides to use, how much of a slide they want to hear. And it makes your playing very personal. If you listen to recordings of different players playing the same piece, the way that they slide is one thing that will really distinguish different players and their personalities. So just as a sort of some basic rules, if you're playing Baroque music, you want to not slide very much, if at all. And if there's ever any kind of slide, it's going to be maybe kind of a helicopter landing. Like like this. If you're doing the Bach cello suites, pretty much no slides. For example, if you were to play not that beautiful, I think. Not the right place for a slide. It's kind of a different aesthetic. We want more cleanness. Getting into classical era, Haydn, Mozart, some Beethoven, not a ton of slides, not even a ton of opportunities to slide, but in general, you're going to do more the helicopter land. These kind of slides. It's when you get into more romantic era, Brahms, Tchaikovsky, Schumann, getting into that era when you're going to start introducing more of the airplane landings. And even in that time period, it's good to kind of mix up the different kind of slides. So I think if you're trying to figure out, I would listen to a lot of different players, listen to what sounds good to you, experiment with different kinds of slides, practice your different kind of slides. I think one of the most important things is try to have variety in your shifting. Try not to do the same kind every time. And lastly, this is something that Jonas Starker always said, you should never slide up to a note and then down from that note again. So I think that's a pretty good rule to follow. Doing really nice expressive slides is one way to make your playing more beautiful and interesting. I hope you found the information on this video helpful to make your playing more beautiful. I really appreciate you watching today. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.